This is the story of the Indian diaspora in France, which has many hues. In mainland France, it is about 1 lakh strong, 20,000 of them Indian passport holders. Many of them are students and professionals, largely in and around Paris and Bordeaux. But in the glittering French overseas territories, Guadeloupe and Martinique in the Caribbean Sea, and Reunion in the Indian Ocean, the Indian diaspora is more substantial and their history different. All of them in their own way are making a difference.
আহা গাড়ির কত
The population from Pondicherry came in the 50s and 60s and 70s onwards in metropolitan France. You have more recent migrants, North Indians, Gujaratis, Punjabis, who came from the 80s onwards for business, education.
When we came here, it brought a lot of influx of French people and French culture, including liberty, equality and fraternity.
La langue française n'est pas un handicap. La langue française est un véhicule, est un moyen, est un médium pour nous, pour redécouvrir davantage et de plus en plus la véritable haine.
Il faut savoir qu'ici, il y a 300 ans, c'était un lieu, après avoir fait être passé à l'église, on venait pique-niquer le dimanche. C'est un lieu symbolique et fort en histoire, puisque par là, vous avez la vue sur l'océan Indien, et tout le monde arrivait par cet endroit qui est fabuleux.
Gautam Sen is a man obsessed with cars, vintage cars.
The fact that I come from Calcutta, from Bengal, somehow the same kinds of passions you find in Calcutta, people getting obsessed with either soccer or politics or cinema, or women for the matter, or whatever, music. It's the same kind of obsessions the French have.
Gautam has been exhibiting vintage cars in India and France for the last 20 years.
The Indian market is very peculiar. It's peculiar in the Asian context. It's a market for small cars, essentially hatchbacks, for diesel engine cars, with cars with manual transmission. And that's quite unique compared to the rest of Asia. It's surprisingly very, very similar to the French market. The French are the best in Europe or in the world for making diesel engines, small cars, manual transmission cars.
In the south of France, the beautiful Chateau Gamage is a 200-year-old winery inheritance. The legacy now is in the hands of Usha Lavi, a Singaporean of Indian origin, a challenge she has to face every day in a field that is primarily dominated by men.
Wines were produced here at the property. It was a challenging experience to keep the property in the hands of women, especially being Indian. We have owned the property for several decades, and we continue this ancient tradition of winemaking here at Chateau Gamage.
While Usha Lavi continues the tradition of French wines, a Frenchman living in the heart of Puducherry is making the finest quality of fragrances.
We started Maroma in 1976. Aroma started with very small means. We had absolutely no money to start that, but we could borrow money here and there in order to buy some raw material and start with incense. I must say that I'm very proud and happy to be here in India, after these 40 years and having participated to all of that. We are not Indian, but we are also patriotic, and we are inside ours. We are Indian, we are French, and we are all that.
Another French man in the heart of France is engaged in the development of another unusual business, film collaborations between France and India, which are fast becoming an important source of business for the economy.
The biggest avenue when it comes to French-Indian relationships seems to be Indian shoots in France. Here in France, as you know, the Indian diaspora doesn't speak Hindi. They speak Tamil. So that means that we had more Tamil movies shot in France than we had Hindi movies. What we do with Indian producers is what the Film Commission do. There, let's say, to be the first gate that will explain what it will be, who they can work with, who has worked with Indian production, what could be interesting. For any question related to film and TV production, we are Indian producers' best friends.
Far away in the French overseas territory of Reunion, Sanjay Odarji is the best friend of those interested in the finer things of life.
Les bijoux traditionnels indiens sont beaucoup plus massifs. Il y a beaucoup plus d'or en 22 carats. Et les bijoux traditionnels, donc français, je dirais, aujourd'hui, européens, sont beaucoup plus axés sur les diamants, sur la joaillerie. Donc c'est de la bijouterie fine. On aimerait que les Indiens de l'Inde puissent connaître ce que c'est ici, cette partie de l'Inde qui est à La Réunion.
C'était au départ une petite entreprise familiale qui s'est développée dans le secteur de la quincaillerie et dans les matériaux de construction.
Group Ravat is a pillar of Reunion's economy and an integral part of Reunion society.
Pour faire les actions sociales que notre père a menées ici à La Réunion, nous avons été obligés effectivement de créer une fondation, Ravat, qui intervient à La Réunion. Et sur ce même modèle, nous pouvons aussi intervenir en Inde.
This effortless movement between the two nations has led to a constant exchange in arts, culture, people, politics, business, and more. France is one of the largest investors in India, and for India, France is an important destination for investment.
You'll find many companies now who find India as a good opportunity to share or to invest. At the same time, many companies from India are coming to France also to do sensing. And many companies like say Capgemini, they have created 53,000 jobs in hardly a few years in India.
There are more than 100 Indian companies in France, including Wipro, Syntex, and the Indian multinational conglomerate Tata.
We have very old connection. Example in the business life, Mr. Tata, J.R.D. Tata, was from a French mother and is not buried in Cimetière Le Père Lachaise in Paris because he was half French. He was educated in France and he was a very good speaker in French.
Paul Jacobi is a member of Parliament in Paris and head of cultural affairs. This Indian connection is not just diplomatic, but also personal, being married to an Indian wife.
In India, every time I go to Gurgaon, Delhi, I am surprised by the change. The buildings, technology, the flyovers, things like that.
Mr. Arun Kumar Singh, the Indian ambassador to France, emphasizes the common values that have strengthened the history and partnership between the two nations.
Since we've gained our independence, there is a new relationship. And especially since the end of the 1990s, the relationship has been extremely strong. We share common values, democracy, freedoms, rule of law. There is a strong business dimension to the relationship. Space, civil nuclear energy, defense. France is among our major partners. In space, for example, India has launched 18 satellites from France. We have launched 2 satellites for France, and we have done 2 joint satellites.
Assalamu alaikum. Je te salue, terre ancestrale, pays de nos pères, laissés pour de lointaines contrées. Petit-fils fidèle, vers toi je reviens, Moulakat longtemps désiré.
Donc c'est une communauté qui s'est aussi renforcée, qui s'est enrichie. Il y avait là aussi la sagesse des anciens. Ceux qui sont arrivés ont eu vraiment la sagesse de s'entendre, de se dire qu'on est dans une île, il faut qu'on vive ensemble, on a un avenir qui est commun.
150 years ago, a group of indentured laborers arrived in the island of Reunion from the ports of Chennai and Kolkata.
Il y a 150 ans, les premiers Indiens sont arrivés à La Réunion. La culture indienne a façonné l'histoire de notre île, l'histoire du territoire, mais aussi des hommes, des Français que nous sommes.
Far away in the French overseas territory of Guadeloupe, amongst the indentured laborers who landed on the coast was a lawyer and politician who defended workers and demanded French citizenship for Indians there.
Leur a permis de bénéficier des avancées démocratiques pour tout le prolétariat guadeloupéen. Et c'est ainsi qu'ils considèrent qu'Occident Barom fait partie des grands hommes de la Guadeloupe.
Records show that by the end of the 19th century, nearly 68,000 indentured Indian laborers were brought to the idyllic French Caribbean islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique. Both islands have a community of Hindus, but people of Indian descent have assimilated with the majority of the population of mixed ancestry. Though sugarcane is still produced in both Guadeloupe and Martinique, tourism has become an important sector of the economy where people of Indian origin are well represented, including transport and construction, vegetable trade, higher education, and professional positions. Guadeloupe, Martinique, and Reunion share a deep connect with the people of India.
Des Indiens qui étaient venus du Gujarat et une autre partie du Tamil Nadu, avec des religions différentes. Et d'ailleurs, ce qui s'est passé au sein de la communauté indienne reflète aussi ce qui se passe au sein de notre société réunionnaise, c'est le respect des différentes communautés. Et ça, on doit surtout dans cette période aujourd'hui très difficile au niveau international.
Jean-Paul Virpool has been a member of the Senate of France, representing the island of Reunion. He has been the mayor of Saint-André for the last 36 years.
Les planteurs ont débarqué chez moi en novembre 1969. Et ils m'ont dit, il faut que tu sois candidat. Alors, ma femme les a mis à la porte, mais ils sont revenus le lendemain et c'est dans le gazon devant la maison. Ils ont amené un drap, on a bu un coup, ils ont discuté et c'est là que je leur ai dit oui. Parce que la maison était fermée, on était mis à la porte. Je leur ai dit oui et je ne savais pas que j'allais me trouver face à Paul Vergès, qui était le vrai leader politique de la Réunion.
The late Gilbert Kanabadi, a migrant of Tamil origin, was one of the richest people in Reunion, with large sugarcane plantations and real estate business in Saint-Pierre. His life was a poignant story of India in Reunion.
Mon grand-père est né sur le domaine de mon caprice. Il a été engagé à l'âge de 7 ans. Et moi, effectivement, j'ai réussi à racheter le domaine de mon caprice avec tous les livres de comptabilité où on retrace tout le parcours de la famille.
Tragically, Gilbert Kanabadi Muthian passed away soon after this interview. He lies buried in his beloved home of Reunion, symbolic of the meetings of many cultures.
Il n'y avait pas un peuple qui était là avant
Nous sommes venus à peu près de différentes vagues, mais nous sommes joints sur ce petit territoire. Mais ce qu'il faut bien comprendre, c'est qu'il y a un ciment autour de ça. Le ciment, c'est la République française.
L'objectif, c'est justement de la connaissance, propager la connaissance indienne, montrer que nous sommes issus d'une grande civilisation, parce que nous avons ici des gens de toute origine, il faut partager. Et nous sommes profondément réunionnais, nous sommes profondément français, mais nous n'oublions pas nos racines indiennes.
It was not just the Indians like artist Shakti Burman or the great painter S.H. Raza taking their art and culture to France. The French had left a significant part of their roots in India during the period of colonization. Dr. Nalam is a renowned surgeon and the recipient of the Chevalier de la Légion d'honneur, the highest civilian honor given to anyone by the French government.
After the defeat of French in Indochina, it was an automatic choice of Mendes France to liberate all the colonies, and Pondicherry was liberated. But they still gave an option to the population who are willing to become French national. About 8,000 people opted for French nationality.
Major Indian territory was under British rule. It was a very small part of India which was under French rule. I think it's also because we had, to some extent, be close to the Indian freedom fighters, but also we kept some good relationships with the government, with the Indian government after 47 and independence.
But 40 years before the liberation of Pondicherry, now known as Puducherry, Indians fought in the Battle of Neuve-Chapelle during the First World War.
The contribution of India was during the First War. It was very important. More than 10,000 soldiers died in France. That means they make a big effort, they fight well, and that is important.
The Indians came here, the Punjab regiments and the Gurkha came to France during the First World War and fought for the freedom of French people. We fought so the French colors would fly high.
But India and France also contributed to a spirit of peace together. Mira Alfassa, fondly known as the Mother, founded Auroville as part of the Sri Aurobindo Society.
I am French by birth and early education. I am Indian by choice and predilection. In my consciousness, there is no antagonism between the two.
Auroville signifies the mother's deep spiritual connect with India, a connect that lies deep in the history of France in India. And lying deep in the history of India in France is the Ramakrishna Mission in Gretz, founded by Swami Vivekananda.
We have a man's university. It is a kind of approach to the ancient Indian traditional education system called Gurukula.
Giving their lives in service to the Ramakrishna Mission are German musician Naren and Dutch singer Sarada. Ramakrishna Mission's teachings are propagated through the local Gandharvgan radio station.
Web radio is, we are broadcast some meditation, some mantra singing, some philosophy lesson. Everything is guided by Swami Vitamohananda.
Il faut revenir et revenir en ce monde. Le veau dit moi, 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 moi.
Impact is very strong now in France. Now it's becoming bigger and bigger, and we are very happy. The radio started 2 years ago only, and now we have more and more listeners. That's very, very nice.
Apart from spiritual teaching, many other aspects of Indian culture are absorbed into the French mainstream through the Indian diaspora.
It was extremely enriching for me. In fact, working on this Indian play when I came here, for instance, allowed me to look at stuff which is sometimes, you know, when things are too close to you and you can't look at them properly, you need to push them away in order to be able to look at them. And that allowed me that distance. In a sense, I grew up. I mean, there was a certain maturity that being in this theatre and doing theatre in France and having this link that France has with India, I think cultural link between France and India is a very old link.
In that way, I think I got that gust living in France, because there I could exhibit myself, and which had helped me to exhibit more my Indian arts. I think that way I should thank the both cultures.
French people, for example, they're very difficult, very critical, and they're perfectionists. And I think that is what I got from Paris, because I never compromise on details. Maybe that's what makes you grow. There's one very important other part of my artistic existence is that all my main books, the important books on my work, all done by French publisher, like one is done by Alba Michel, another is done by La Différence. So all these books are gift to me by all French publishers.
My mother started her own NGO in India called Renaissance International, which used to help Indian karigars, Indian artisans, to export, to make products that would sell in Europe, because unfortunately the kala is there, the art is there, the know-how is there, but the designs are too Indian to be sold abroad. So I decided to work with her.
Son of India's renowned general and former Chief of Army Staff, General J.J. Singh, Vivek Pal Singh is the first Sikh to be elected to political office in France.
We've been elected since April in the new city here in Condé-sur-Vie as a new party, and I have started bringing in my little contribution, whatever my family taught me, whatever India taught me, to a country where people are opening up to the new ideas and new concepts which are different for them.
Non, mais il faut aussi voir les entreprises qu'on va faire venir pour les travaux.
And at the same time, I'm sure I'm bringing into India a lot of the French cultures and the French values of work, especially in the ethic and social responsibilities in the work.
Anil Abhimanyu Sharma has made an exciting journey from a photographer in India to a leading epicurist in France.
So one of the biggest challenges of teaching Indian cuisine is explain the basics of why we eat and how we eat in India. And I explain to them, why do we cut everything into small pieces? Because we eat with our fingers. So it's a journey for them. I don't just teach the technical part of it. Détox tout votre corps. Le yoga, c'est pas un sport, c'est votre corps. Vous massez votre corps de l'intérieur. I try to show only the simple recipes, because we have only 3 hours in which I would like to share India with them, I would like to share cuisine with them, and I would like to share the health aspect, which is 3 totally different things.
Catering to the popular interest in French cuisine is Pinakin Desai, who has opened a chain of successful coffee shops in Paris.
કોઈ પણ બિઝનેસ કરવા માટે બેંકની જરૂરત તો પડે જ છે. ફ્રાન્સની દરેક બેંક અમારી સાથે કામ કરવા તૈયાર છે અને જેટલું ફાઇનાન્સ જોઈએ એના માટે વિના ગેરંટીથી આપવા માટે તૈયાર છે. કારણ કે અમારો જે ગ્રાફ એ લોકોએ જોયો આટલા વર્ષમાં, અમારી મહેનત જોઈ, એના પ્રમાણમાં અમને ખુલ્લા દિલે એ લોકોએ ઓફર કરે છે કે તમે આગળ વધો.
It's a long story, passionate love story with the language, first with the Bengali and then with the French. Neither India nor France is my homeland. It's the French language is my homeland today. Why? Because I can't think like a true Indian anymore. At the same time, I don't want to be a French. I don't want to be a Frenchie in that sense. You know, somehow it's mixed-blooded. I'm not mixed-blooded by birth, but I'm mixed-blooded by culture now.
Sabine Armudam, whose ancestors came as indentured laborers, now teaches yoga in Reunion.
Quelques années de ça, le yoga n'était pas considéré comme une philosophie à La Réunion.
Le yoga m'apporte beaucoup de bien-être physique, mental, spirituel. J'en ai vraiment besoin chaque jour.
On fait des études sur le yoga et on s'aperçoit que le yoga arrive à résoudre certains problèmes, même des problèmes psychologiques.
And the people of India learn the French game, pétanque.
Donc c'est un jeu qui s'appelle la pétanque. Oui, disons dans la communauté indienne, c'est un des jeux de loisirs, je dirais, principaux, parce que tout le monde se retrouve après dîner. Donc c'est plus pour se relaxer, pour se retrouver entre amis, et on joue donc avec tout le monde, quoi, voilà.
A different ball, a different place, a different spirit, as cricket takes its tentative steps in France.
Most of the thing here, the players we play against them are Asians. Okay, you can see Pakistan, Sri Lankans, Indians, Bangladeshi, everyone, and of course there are British people also.
Mostly when I talk about cricket to my French colleagues, they ask me if it's a croquet. Croquet, it's a French game. But mostly I try to explain them by relating to baseball.
We quite explain them. We have lots of translations, all the words that we use in cricket. We have the translation. For example, the stumps, we call it as guichet in French. So they come and watch the matches during the weekends with us, and they enjoy the game. Right now, this is how we are also promoting on behalf of France Cricket. We are promoting the game.
Like professional cricket, the ethos of the present Indian diaspora in France is also professional. Aided considerably by the work of the Indian Professional Association in Paris, Maison de l'Inde, headed by director Vikas Sanyal, offers a window to higher education and opportunity in France to young people from India.
Since I joined this school, was to promote relationship between India and France. My first visit that I made officially on behalf of ESCP was to IIM Ahmedabad. I was the first school, I think, where we signed an agreement with IIM Ahmedabad. So it dates back to more than 30 years. And since then, we have now official collaboration with 7 business schools in India. All Indian students who we recruit to the CAT system, we give them automatically a scholarship of 50%. And in addition to that, we have double degree agreements, which is something quite unique. That means they get degrees from both the institutions.
Maya Cesari is the director of CYROI, the research institute in Reunion that has collaborated with the Indian Institute of Science on an important exchange program.
Depuis 2008, nous avons été accueillis à l'Indian Institute of Science par le professeur Srinivasan, et depuis, nous avons mené des partenariats scientifiques Et nous avons également à notre actif la première co-tutelle de thèse franco-indienne, c'est-à-dire la première co-diplomation entre la France et l'Inde.
Along with his partner René, Dr. Srinivas Kaveri has come to India to take forward the scientific collaboration between France and India as the director of the National Centre for Scientific Research.
Union between India and France is absolutely not a problem. On the contrary, I see that both the countries have perfected. There's a lot of potential to work together. The relation between France and India in science dates back to several years. My job will be very simple. It has to further strengthen, enhance the relation between this.
You probably know names such as Ramanujan, Raman, Chandrasekhar. They have shaped the history of science for India. I'm really proud to be the creator of Dia-1, the first neuro-inspired robot that purifies the air and takes care of indoor environment. Dia is a perfect example of the collaboration that PIOs can have with other countries. And now this is an example of the collaboration between France and India.
French and the Indians are so proud of their independence. I think through cinema, through literature, and this is maybe the most important aspect of India, which are very much appreciated in France. Through that literature, they enter in a different world. So France, I think, has to globalize, and thanks to this Indian diaspora, they get some understanding of what is exactly the world. The world is different from the French values, so you have to deal with these non-French values if you want to be in the 21st century power.
Philippe Advani exemplifies the new professional of Indian origin in France, literally flying sky high.
Airbus has established a tremendous relationship of confidence as far as commercial aircraft is concerned. And I think now it's a trusted partner of India and contributes to the growth of the industry. The area which is wanting today is on the sovereign side of industry. So I think on the defense side, on the space side, helicopter side. So I think this is a real area of development for the relations. Now, what I've been doing for the past years is that I've been setting up what we call global sourcing. And the idea here is to distribute aerospace added value across the world. And you will not be surprised if I said that India is obviously one of the leading destinations for us. So we've been opening some organizations in various countries. India was the first one.
L'influence indienne est là depuis notre plus tendre enfance parce que au moment des fêtes, tout ça, la musique était là présente. Les contes étaient présents. Par exemple, le Bal Tamoul, l'histoire de Rama et Sita. Pourtant, on ne connaissait pas l'existence de l'Inde, mais il y avait un langage, une langue qui était là. Et depuis longtemps, les contes indiens étaient là présents.
La mer y gonfle, cachette sous table, le ciel y gronde, mon yeux y ferme, la terre les frêle, le vent fiel, prie à bon Dieu, fait le soleil.
À suivre sur notre antenne ce soir au Niger.
Voilà, Diane Lazarevich qui a pris l'avion.
Demain, c'est aussi le jour où on reçoit son...
I was born in India in February 1971. I only stayed that's 4 or 6 months in India, and I grew up in a French family close to Paris. Parents, they always told me where I came from,
in another way. They couldn't hide it from me, as this is my skin color and both of them are white. I just went back once in India almost 10 years ago and went back to the orphanage I stayed at when I was a baby, because I need to know if my biological mom or dad are still alive. And I tried to ask the sisters if they had kept any papers, and she was so sorry to tell me that she didn't find anything.
L'Inde, pour moi, c'est le pays de maman. Donc, sachant qu'elle a été adoptée, soi-disant, par mes grands-parents.
Pourquoi soi-disant?
Non, mais qui a été adoptée par mes grands-parents. Donc, c'est un pays que ouais, j'aimerais bien aller voir.
The complex contours of the ancient connection between France and India has interesting manifestations. From a rediscovery of identity, the journey of the Indian diaspora in France has taken many turns as it continues to reinvent itself.
I was born and brought up in South India and grew up here all my life and have lived in India all my life. Never lived in France, but both my parents are French. So I grew up speaking French at home. Artistically and creatively, I've always loved French cinema, and I think that's been a great influence on my life as an actor. And then I always say that my skin is white, my heart is brown, but I can't deny that there's a lot of French in me.
I'm a great believer, although India doesn't know France that much. France doesn't know India that much, but I still feel in the collective unconscious, in an unsaid sort of a way, I think there's a great bond between France and India which will come to the fore one day.
I am attached to my Indian nationality. At the same time, I feel very French. I belong to this society and yet I don't belong to it. So it gives me a very privileged status because I can observe India from an external eye, be critical of it and yet part of that society. And I can do the same with French society. Somewhere I'm an insider, but I'm also an outsider. And I love that feeling of being inside and outside at the same time.
Rien de rien, non, je ne regrette rien. C'est payé, balayé, oublié, je m'en fous du passé. Avec mes souvenirs, j'ai allumé le feu, mes chagrins, mes plaisirs, je n'ai plus besoin de balayer les amours avec leur trémolo, balayer pour toujours, je repars à zéro. Non, rien de rien, non, je ne regrette rien, ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal, tout ça m'est bien